Ho, 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 ho. That was it.
That was it?
That was it.
That was it.
A critical error is an error which the OS cannot reasonably ignore. Jake Steinberg is a streamer, writer, and certified yapper, complimentary. Peter Szpytek is a YouTuber, journalist, and certified yapper, derogatory. These are the things they cannot reasonably ignore.
A little bit different today, Jakey. A little bit, and I can call you that because it's a holiday.
That's right.
Merry Christmas, Jake.
Yep.
And also, Happy Hanukkah.
Ooh.
10th day. Is
That's
this still
right.
going? Yeah.
It's done.
Oh, okay. I see.
It's done. It's done. But
ever since you mentioned it last week, I think you at sundown every single day. I'm not even kidding.
wow,
I'm not
delightful,
even kidding.
delightful. So because it's the end of the year, we were thinking, like, what are we going to do for our Game of the Year episode?
Yes.
And I think, it's our freshman year. What an incredible year for Critical Error starting out. Really proud of us, But at the same time, I think, like, something we do on this podcast is we always go, okay, what's the first idea? What is everybody doing? And then maybe we can do something different.
Yeah, just to, like, how many of these Game of the Year podcasts do we think you've listened to? And it's not that those are bad; those are perfectly fine and fun. I listen to those. We all, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a problem, but it is like, can we just change it up for you a little bit? Is there something else we can do?
Yeah, and maybe the listeners are sick of us by now. And if people want an episode in which Peter and I fight with each other to construct a top 10 list between the two of us over the, I don't know, however many or few games we played over the course of the year, maybe you should subscribe at patreon.com/criticalerror at the $5 and up tier and ask for that in the bonus pod, which comes out every single week. But for this week, what we've decided to do instead is, for the first time ever on Critical Error, we have invited guests onto the show. We, spend so much time kind of like criticizing the nature of how people talk about games that we thought it would be cool to kind of toss it over to people we admire in the space, people that have been receiving Critical Error over the course of our freshman year that have kind of been understanding what it is we've been trying to do. And we thought it would be just such a gift for us to pay it forward to those people, have them on the pod, get a moment to talk to them, see what they think, and ask them for their Game of the Year for 2025.
So we asked them for two things. We asked them for their Game of the Year from 2025. So they can gush about something. I was we've already recorded these, by the way. I was excited to hear about these because, I don't know, I got some new perspectives on games I've played. I got some recommendations of games I didn't even know about, which is always kind of fun to read these sorts of lists and whatever. But so we asked for their Game of the Year, and then we also asked for their Critical Error, where we basically said, if you were doing an episode of Critical Error, what would you do it about?
What's something you want to get off of your chest? The ways in which people talk about games. If you could make a critique out into the world, what would you say for this year? Something you can maybe carry forward into 2026. That's what we were looking for. So each of our three guests supplied us with their Game of the Year and their Critical Error of the Year. Is there anything else we need to say before we toss it over to our first guest?
I mean, I just really appreciate the people who came to talk to us, because also these are people who we admire and read their work and all of that sort of stuff. So we're just so thankful for everyone who came on the show, and we are so thankful for you listening to this, whether you are a part of the Critical Error Nation on Patreon or not. Thank you for tuning in to us this year.
Let's see our first guest. Hello, and we are here with Barrett Courtney, a video producer and editor for Kinda Funny. And a video producer and editor are Kind of Funny. I just want to say, we got a lot of outlets out there. We got a lot of video games coverage. That is quite the operation if you tune in over at Kind of Funny Games. There's a lot going on, a lot of different screens, a lot of different cameras. It is a production. So it cannot be overstated, I think, the ship that Barrett is steering over here. And Barrett, of course, is going to share with us his Game of the Year for 2025. Barrett, please.
A driving factor that can influence your perception on whether a particular year was good or bad for video games is expectation. There's something special about the kinetic high you feel when your spark of expectation is kindled into a roaring fire because a piece of art you are anticipating exceeds that expectation, fueling you to imagine how else the boundaries of what you already love could be pushed even further. There's also something special about the emptiness you feel when that spark is fizzled out by the cold and damp reality of a piece of art disappointing that expectation. And to me, the years filled with that emptiness and disappointment are more compelling because then you're fueled to find different sources of heat. There's an excitement about feeling the warmth of something new, a warmth not born out of expectation. 2025 was one of those years for me. For every spark of expectation I had for adventures with a gorilla and his singing child friend, a samurai and shinobi teaming up, or two heroes of destiny going to a carnival that were drowned by disappointment, I found new sparks in adventures that found me wandering a mansion that magically changes its layout every day, on the run from a space gang where I can only rely on chance to survive, or beating up fantastical creatures over and over again to defeat what was originally thought to be ultimate evil. And they all gave me the warmth of experiencing something new. I love years like these because they remind me that another driving factor that can influence your perception on how good a year is for games is your willingness to explore outside of your expectations. And while my game of the year might not be, let me take that back, sorry. And while my game of the year might be one that seems like an obvious choice to a lot of people, it's one for me that originally existed outside of any personal expectation. A game that gave a warmth of experiencing something new within games that I adore. And that game is Hollow Knight Silksong.
Barrett, you got me
Oh my
cheesing it up. You got me yucking it up right now.
My heart was tickled when you ask somebody to deliver something and you never expect that you're just gonna get the straight heat the entire time. I was okay. I think that was beautiful. The way that Critical Error so focused on this kind of like meta conversation about games, and that was kind of the point that you started at. And so that was I thought that like looped in really, really well. And I'm surprised because I think so much of the conversation surrounding Silksong was that high, that the anticipation, the wait, people had expectations for it.
Right.
But you're saying that you did not. You were coming from it so that's a really unique perspective on that game.
So yeah, for myself, I was never a Hollow Knight guy, right?
Okay.
My roommate Andy, who I also work with, like he fell in love with Hollow Knight a couple years after it had come out, and he was bugging me about it all the time, and it never really clicked for me. I remember trying it for like the first 30 minutes, and I was like, wrong place, wrong time, time type of thing. And with the kind of the way that I got more interested in it, or the way that kind of opened me up to when it came out actually being like, you know what, I'm going to try this out, was Nine Souls last year, which is also very cartoon 2D Metroidvania inspired, but also Sekiro like crazy combat where you're constantly deflecting and doing parries and all this stuff. And I fell in love with that game. But even with that, and falling in love with that game last year, and that being one of my favorite games of last year, going into this year, and even when we got the confirmation that Silksong was coming this year, there wasn't an inherent like, oh my God, I need to play this game. I'm so excited for this game. It was more so, it reminded me a lot of launch day of Destiny 2. I did not care about Destiny, but there was a fervor in the air. I remember at the IGN office when that game was coming out and everybody was downloading it, and it was like, you know what, I'm going to go home and download this. And so for Silksong's launch day, I remember Andy was going to do this whole marathon stream because he was so excited for Silksong, and I had just actually had tested positive for COVID, and I was supposed to go in with into the studio with him to help him set up the stream. And I'm texting him from my room. I wake up that morning and it's early because we wanted to be there right when like the game was like coming out on Steam to stream him buying it and all this stuff. And I'm texting him at like 5 a.m. I just tested positive for COVID. I'm going to have to, like, when you get to the studio, I need you to video call me. And I'm going to walk you through how to turn on the studio. And there's something about like seeing him start it up and seeing everybody post about it, or it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to buy this. I'm going to try it out. And I just gave into that world in a way that I was not expecting. That I just yeah, again, before kind of like that week, I was, aware of the memes and like this kind of this big conversation around where is this game. But outside of that, it was never like a most anticipated or, I have like a big expectation for this game. It was just like, oh, this is one of those kind of 2D type of games that seems like my kind of vibe. I'll actually give it a try.
Was there a moment for you where it like clicked, where you went from being like, oh, this is pretty fun, to being like, yo? Or is it just like in general, you know what I mean? Because like sometimes a game like that sort of like you stew on. Because I think Hollow Knight is kind of an understated game that's not like, this is amazing right off the bat. It starts to jump around. You know what I mean?
It's something that washes over you. And I think that kind of like, that happened for me, but I do remember it was mainly a conversation where, there's a mini boss early on in the game. It's this big red ant. He's got this big hammer. I remember thinking like, man, this is a tough fight. And this isn't even a boss that has like a health bar and a name or anything. This is just a guy. And, it was one of those with a lot of games like these, like a Souls game or what have you, where, you could do the smart thing of like, I'm going to walk away and explore around and figure it out. And maybe when I come back, I've learned something new about how to play this game, or, I unlock something that makes me think about how to fight this dude in a better, more efficient way. Or there's the stupid route, which I went through. It's like, I'm just going to bang my head against the wall because I think this is the only way through this game. It's just because it's hard. And I remember beating that fight and then learning from someone, oh yeah, you can unlock the dash and then go back to him. I was like, I didn't realize that. I just thought you had to beat him like that. And for something like that conversation, that was just such a cool little, like, almost like, not sequence skipping, but it reminded me of like conversations like that when we talk about like Metroids and all that stuff, of just like how much there is to discover in this world. And I think the other thing for me was once you get to the kind of like main city that you're trying to get to, right? And it's this like grand cutscene, feels in a 2D cartoon way, very Elden Ring-esque, where you see this like huge cathedral and it's beautiful and it's taking you over in such a way where it looks beautiful, but there's something just so empty about it. Or I that's where I was starting to emotionally put together what this game was going to be about. And from there on out, everything going on in the center of like kind of this big hub area in that Act 2 onward, that's where I really just started to understand, like, at least for myself, of like what this game meant, what it's talking about. And then from there, how the gameplay is helping tell that story in a unique way, and not adding to the commentary of what it's talking about, but more so doing something presentationally that I thought was really beautiful and felt so unique for even, 2D action adventure games.
There's something so interesting that I think you're hitting on about your experience with this game, about kind of being enveloped in the moment, that I've been reflecting on. And I think, like, because of the social media landscape we live in and like the amounts of information that we're constantly being fed, there's something about this genre of games, and I think Souls-likes are like this as well, that are resistant to spoiler culture, that it's almost a prerogative to have players talk to each other and share things with each other and be like, no, you should maybe get a little help from your friend and they're going to tell you something, and then that's going to change how you approach this boss. That is almost, rather than trying to fight the mass amounts of information that you're being fed on social media, it's actually working with it. It's actually saying like, no, it's you are all actually part of this launch, this moment together. It's cool that you're sharing this. It's cool that you're watching somebody else's stream, and then that might inform what you do in your playthrough in a way that is like now part of your story, right?
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring up kind of like spoiler culture and how there's kind of like, a respectfulness that, I think we get overly respectful in terms of spoiler culture, especially with video games. Right? But I think because games like Hollow Knight and games like Elden Ring and other of its ilk that is not so plot focused and making the plot the driving force of what the narrative is doing, it's almost kind of hard to spoil things in certain ways, because it's like you're only going to understand what this game is going for the more you give into it, and how you personally view the world and take certain things away from it. That I think it's like almost like, yeah, you can spoil a name, but like that's not really going to mean anything
Yeah.
to you. And like, is it really going to mean anything to you until like 5 hours later, where you put together like, oh, this boss fight that felt like this mechanical dance is actually a reflection on homogenized culture, when religion takes over an area of a world and tries to rid all culture that existed there previously. And when they try to echo existence before they take over, it feels so robotic, so lifeless. And then you see a different fight that original mechanical fight was based off of, and you're like, oh, this is the true meaning of, the cogwork dancers, I believe is what they're called, right? Like, there's just something about the inherent of like the way they tell stories, and I mean just like developers who like to tell stories more so in the landscape in terms of boss fight design, I think is just really cool, and it takes time to really unpack. And so I've thought about that a lot with Silksong, of just like, the kind of spoiler culture and how these games kind of like overcome that in an interesting way.
Well, and I think what you're speaking to here too is this thing about like games that makes them so unique, and it's the idea of like mechanical discovery being the thing that is like what people are like worried about with spoilers for. But as you're saying, like sometimes even like getting those things spoiled for you is like, oh no, that like reveals new ways to like engage with the game and whatever. And that's such a unique like game thing, because there's not like book mechanics, you know what I mean, or whatever that like people are talking about. There's like pros and whatever, but it's not like, it's not one-to-one. And I think when games really lean into that, that's when they're sometimes at their most interesting, and those are the games that like really, I think, resonate with people. I mean, I think
that's when they're the most leaning into their medium of how to tell stories.
Yes, exactly. Because then it's the story of those mechanics and how those mechanics then come together and help shape a world and a narrative and all that sort of stuff, which I think is fascinating. And I think Hollow Knight is a great pick for something like that from this year.
Yeah, that last bit that you said, Barrett, I feel like I know our listening audience pretty well. And I was like, oh, I just heard so many people who are not interested in this game go, oh, no.
Yeah.
I think I heard them turn. I saw the eShop loading up. I felt the sound. Oh, man. That was good. Yeah, I mean, I have not played Silksong, and honestly, I haven't played Hollow Knight. And now it's like, now I feel attacked. Now it's like, oh, okay, I have no excuse. Now it's like, that was pretty compelling. Yeah, Peter?
I also was like Barrett. I played the original one. I was like, fine. And then Silksong came out. I was like, oh no, this is like really good. This is like really, really good.
And I tried going back to Hollow Knight, and I still felt kind of the same way.
Interesting.
And maybe a lot of people talk about like, oh, there's like a certain level of aimlessness in those first couple of hours of Hollow Knight that Silksong kind of improved upon, that where you have more of a direction of the general area that you're supposed to be going. Whereas going back to Hollow Knight, even with like now kind of knowing the bones of what that series is kind of built on, even understanding that, there's still kind of like, I don't know if I'm ever going the kind of right way. And I think it's also just a testament to Hornet's moveset as well. That I just
agreed.
find much more compelling, even from the jump, right? Like, it takes a little bit to get that dash. It takes a little bit to get like, the, I think, I forget if the air dash is like a different thing that you unlock, but like the stuff that they build on top is so great. But I think the core kind of feeling and momentum of Hornet. And I know this is a big discussion of the down pogo, if people like the angled down pogo or not. I'm a down pogo angled defender.
Dude, me too. Learn it. It's good.
I stuck with that. It's good. Yes, it's real good, and it feels real good. And I think the platforming that really like lends itself to that once you really understand it. And that's kind of like, the sicko gamer stuff, brain where it's just like, oh, this just feels right. This is just tickling this right part of my brain where I'm like, yeah, that's nice. That reminds me of a lot of just like really fun kind of platformers that I grew up with. And then, the challenging part of Hollow Knight is not even born out of a love for Souls games. Like I wasn't even really like a Souls guy until Elden Ring, and even after Elden Ring, like the only other like FromSoft games that I truly adore are Sekiro and Armored Core 6. But for me, it was more so of like, I'm a Cuphead sicko, and there's just something about that like 2D kind of challenging boss rush type of thing that Cuphead has that I think like lent itself to, you know, banging my head against a wall in Hollow Knight Silksong that I just really love and adore. And I think it's also just being an animation fan, and even when I'm, you know, bummed that I have lost against a fight, you know, 2 hours in, of just seeing all of every amount of effort put into the animations, the music, the way that Hornet screams when she dies, which is just, it just makes me laugh every time, you know? So yeah.
It's funny. I think the signs of a strong critical reading are even apparent in just you talking about this game, because talking about this boss that is maybe representative of a homogenized culture, and then referring to this pogo, which you are saying is maybe bucking convention of what a gamer would expect the kind of Scrooge McDuck straight down pogo would be, is you can see immediately how these things are in conversation with each other and how they're kind of logically consistent in the world that you just described to me, somebody who has not played the game. So that's incredibly compelling stuff. Hollow Knight Silksong. Oh my God.
Good pick.
GOTY.
Good pick.
Yep.
Oh my God. Love to hear it. So the second thing we asked for, Barrett, is for your critical error of the year, something that you want to get off your chest about how we talk about games. I'm so curious to hear where your mind went with this. You listen to people talk all the time.
All the time, all day.
You're in it.
Yeah. This was an interesting one, and it was a daunting one, because the reason I listened to critical errors, because I think, you know, it's so rare that we have people actually talking about not just video games, but how we talk about video games. And I think that's such a really smart, compelling way to, you know, start a podcast. And I think you two do such a fantastic job of breaking those things down. You two are both seemingly, for having only listened to the podcast, very well read, think about these things a lot of the time, whereas, you know, I'm a big old idiot, you know. I press buttons, and you know, colors go on the screen, and I'm like, hell yeah, I did my job, right? And so it's interesting, especially being someone who's more on the like tech side and like production side of our industry, but, you know, still being a certain voice who has, you know, made commentary here and there once in a while. I thought about it a lot. And my critical error of the year, I think, is less so about the year 2025 and more so thinking about how critics, either in written form, specifically with reviews in written form or in podcast form or in video essay form, how I want more of unpacking what they think this piece of art is actually about and what that means to them. And I say this knowing full well that so many people already do this, and they're doing incredible, amazing work at this. But it's something that I want to see more of, because I think when there's a review where it's like, this game has mature themes about grief or mature themes about womanhood, and then it doesn't get unpacked further than that to talk about what the game is saying. I think there's almost this like trepidation, almost this like nervousness to actually unpack what the game is commenting on. And I think that is something that feels like something left over from game criticism of old that focus way more on the tech side of a video game, way more focused on like the game runs good, the graphics are pretty, the story is well presented, here is good acting. And I think it's just something I want even more critics to think about, especially in kind of like the bigger spaces. And not to say that, there people aren't doing that in the bigger spaces, but just be more curious about the art that you're interacting with, because I think with decades of games criticism, and I'm talking about like, from even before I was in the industry, of being too kind of, I don't know, if scared's the right word, but being
Yeah.
too cautious about breaking these things down, I think lent itself to cultivating this culture around video games with like video game enthusiasts, people who just really love to consume, discussions about video games, of thinking of this medium as not art but a product. And I think a lot about the knee-jerk reactions I see when a video game is talked about as a piece of art, when in reality all video games are pieces of art, whether you want to accept that or not. But when there's a AAA game that has incredible voice acting and beautiful cutscenes and all this stuff, where it finally it presents itself almost as a movie where people can understand, like, oh, this is a video game that's saying something, and anything that isn't doing that, that's just a video game, and we just need to leave it at that. And I think that's how we get to things like, who was it? Was it Tim Sweeney who was like, hey, this review on Arc Raiders needs to just be an opinion piece, because video games are video games and they're they're tech products, and we're a tech driven industry, when really all mediums of art are tech driven. Like, what do you think music is made with? It's technology. What do you think film is made with? It's technology. I think that's such a cop-out, like, redirect from a lot of like people at the top to make people not think deeper about this medium that they're interacting with all the time. So the reason I thought about that as just like a bigger push for people to be more curious about the art that they're interacting with, is because I think because of decades of product reviews of video games, I think has, let this kind of culture stew around video games are video games, and they need to not be art, and they need to not be commenting on it. And if they are commenting on it, it's woke, and I hate it. And I think the more critics we have actually pushing further into what they're interacting with, even if it's a game like Tetris or Sectori, right? The more modern example, right? Like, push past that, push past it just being bright colors and button inputs, and think more about what the game, because even if it's not saying something on a grand level of society or commenting on a specific thing, it's at least saying something. And maybe that something is just, hey, this gameplay kicks ass, right? And that could be all that it is, but that is still a piece of art trying to say something. And I hope that the more we push to that, I hope to cultivate a newer generation of people who are video game enthusiasts, who are actually more interested in thinking about video game, the medium of video games as an art form, and not trying to kind of like, okay, there are some video games that are art because Ben Starr is acting his ass off to me in this cutscene, and then there's other video games that are not art because I don't know, like it's just like I'm controlling a stick figure or something, like nothing. And I think that'll just help the conversation around people understanding themselves more, understanding the art more, and learning about both of those things, right? Nothing depresses me more than, I came out with a Naughty Dog video early this year where I replayed every Naughty Dog game and, talked about every Naughty Dog game. And, I got some comments here, there, and everywhere about people's opinions on my opinions about the Naughty Dog game. But nothing depressed me more than someone saying, in reaction to my thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2, saying, I just don't think we need to be thinking about video games that deeply.
Dude.
And that guts me more than any personal attack I got.
Yes.
Like, that is more upsetting. And even more recently, when the Game Awards nominations were announced and we got to Best Narrative, and Hollow Knight wasn't on there, to bring that back to my Game of the Year, I remember saying on a piece of content, like, oh man, like how like Silk Song should have been here, thinking about its commentary on organized religion, on the ways that it capitalizes on the people that it attracts, and the way it homogenizes culture, and how it tells that story through its environmental storytelling, through the ways that you interact with certain bosses, and it tells that story through a ballet dance in your gameplay, and that game is just learning a ballet, and it's awesome. And almost like way more people in our chats were like, another Barrett L Barrett, that game barely had a story. And it's just like, man, we really I don't know how to fix this, but I really want us to kind of like help kind of the kind of media literacy in terms of video games, because we as a modern, you know, internet society already struggle with media literacy in even in just text. And so it's like, man, the video game level of that is going to take a while, but yeah, that's one that's been on my brain.
It feels like you are, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're looking for is like more people to just like have a perspective. You know what I mean? And like what you started like in the front half.
Thank you for making my long rant very simple.
No. But like you got into all of the you know pieces of it and everything like that. And because I think for me, what you're talking about here is separated into two parts, and it's like reviewers. You know, it's fine to do the product review of a video game. That's going to happen. That's fine. Talk about the frame rate, talk about the whatever. You want the Digital Foundry review. You want the skill up review like that, right? Of course. But also, if you adopt that perspective as a writer, your writing gets way more interesting because then you're not replaceable. And I'm not saying that, you know, whatever, but I'm saying like so many of these reviews read so similarly because they're just saying like the gameplay is good. The story is good. And they're all segmented. And I think it's, as you pointed out, because it's like, I think these are some of the remnants of the way we used to talk about games as products as opposed to art. And there's an intersection there, right? Because they're both.
And what you just brought up of like the, like sectioning off each different individual part as if they're not a part of a whole that's feeding into each other, which is the whole, what makes video games so cool. And like, that's the thing that drives me. Like, yes, we can have the digital foundries because they're really good at what they do, and I am interested in learning what they have to say about, you know, whatever, you know, video game product. But it's also like when we focus so much on like the technology side of it, it's like one of my favorite movies is SLC Punk. Is it really like, is my review going to be about, you know, the cinematography was kind of bland? No, I'm going to talk to you about like why I think that is such a special coming of age movie. And every time I see Matthew Lillard cry at the end of that movie, that makes me want to cry. And, you know, like my personal kind of, you know, relationship with that piece of art. And I think I want more of that. And, you know, there are a lot of great writers who are doing that, but I think there needs to be a push for even more of that, of, you know, putting yourself in, you know, in that review and your interpretation of that piece of art and your interpretation of the world and how you see yourself. Because, and again, the way we used to do video game reviews has cultivated this commentary of whenever we do put ourselves into a review, people are like, you need to be objective. And it's like, that is bullshit. I hate that.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. You started off by talking about how you listen to Critical Error and it sounds like we're really well read. And I think what's funny about that is that your natural instincts just brought you to everything that I would tell you with like so something that you described in this that I think is famously, I'm sourcing Janet Malcolm, this book called The Journalist and the Murderer. And she talks about how journalistic objectivity is a performance that conceals the writer's power and choices. So it's not like claiming neutrality does not remove bias. It just obscures it. But I think there is such a prerogative in video game writing to claim that you are coming from an unbiased perspective. That is something that has been shaped for us. It's like, oh, I need to make clear to my reader that I am not biased. But really what that's doing is it's a pose that I think hides the writer's hand. And the most important thing that I think you hit on, which is really like the heart of so much of what we talk about on this show, is that description is Roland Barthes, one of the most preeminent critics of all time. He said that description was pre-critical and interpretation is the work of a critic. So criticism begins like when the writer explains how meaning is produced and why it resonates or fails, not what is being produced, why, what is in between the space between the writer and the text. And I think you aptly described, like, so many things are, here is what is in front of me, and I'm reporting back and telling people what I saw in this game, and then just kind of saying that was there, it was good, and there is this lack of the almost responsibility of the individual to come in and meet the text halfway and say, okay, here's what the text brought me, and here's what I'm bringing to the text, which I think was a lot of what you were wanting of in more reviews. Yeah.
Yes. And what I appreciate too about what you were talking about, where when you said that you brought up like Silk Song is like one of the best narratives of the year, and your chat is being like, this is a bad take. What I find interesting about that is it's sort of like is in conversation with what Jake is trying to say here about like a lot of the games that I think people recognize as like, oh, this is the best narrative of the year are games that kind of look like movies. Do you know what I mean? Where it's the most
visible narrative.
Yes. And when we talk about like, oh, the best performance at the Game Award, and it is all human beings whose faces you are watching, and it's like a movie, right? Yep. And that's a totally fine way to do a video game. But to your point, Hollow Knight is not a game that reads like a movie, right? It's not a game that you would be like, what am I looking at? Is this a movie? No, because it is so steeped in its mechanics and in the player interaction with it. But to Jake's point about like, can you say, how did you say it? It's not, what was it? What was the end there?
You're with me, Peter. You're with me. Yeah,
I know, but about how like it is the interpretation is the job of the critic. Not what was the first part of it?
Oh, description.
Yes, but like it feels like so many of these games that feel like movies are just describing, right? It's just like in front of your eyes, and you are seeing it, and you are not having to do any of the lifting, any of the work of understanding it. Whereas something like Hollow Knight, to your point about it having a great narrative, that is the interpretation, because it's not just the description of just saying like, this is the story about a bug who does this stuff. It's like, no, what are these bosses telling you? What is this environment telling you?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I even loved the example of Tetris, to be honest with you, because like to deny the narrative qualities of Tetris is insane to me. Like my interpretation would say a game clearly about turning chaos into order, the relief of things stacking up in front of you, and then when you can make sense of them, they disappear and you have that moment of relief, but then things just keep coming and more, and how the intensity ratchets up. Like, oh my God, to say that is not a storytelling device through mechanics, it's crazy to me, because
that's funny,
100% go on that ride.
And we're going to go on this rant on Tetris, because I have a completely different interpretation of Tetris, where I think that game is about embracing the different shapes of what we can do and bringing people together to accomplish something.
Wow. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh my God. See, that's fun. See, that to me is like,
and that's these are the like stupid but good, cool conversations I want more of, and for more people to be interested in having, and to think about mechanics on a storytelling level like that. Like I love Clair Obscur like that. That's another favorite of mine this year. I think the one mechanical thing Clair Obscur does interesting in terms of a storytelling aspect and how it tells a story is making you believe that you're going to fill out character stats for a character who dies a good 10-15 hours into that game, right? And I think that's a more of like a, hey, we're gonna tease this thing and then take it away from you, and that's been done before, but that's like that's like the closest thing I think about like what Clair Obscur does with in terms of mechanics, and having this expectation and pulling it away from you, whereas I think the mechanics of Silk Song in terms of one that people were really upset about is like eventually you have to pay for sitting at a bench once you get into this like kind of religious hub, and it's like, yeah, because it's actually like really trying to mechanically tell you about the exploitations of organized religion and what that is doing to its followers, and the way that the livelihood of these bugs and how they feel like they're their own beings, the further you're away from that center place, and then the closer you get, the more likely that they are being strung up by silk and not being their own selves, which then you have to fight a bunch of them, which is really upsetting. But like even through that, like their story in that, and yeah, I want more of that conversation.
Yeah.
Oh my
Courtney,
God. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I apologize for taking up so much of y'all's time tonight, but big fan of the show. I want you two to keep doing what you're doing on the show and off the show. I was very intimidating being introduced and being invited onto the show, because I've listened and I've heard y'all's kind of like not even like spoken word pieces and all this stuff, and it's very intimidating to be asked like, hey, can you do a pre-written thing for your game of the year? I'm like, damn, I heard this man talk about what was it, Street Fighter, or what was the arcade fighting game?
Street Fighter is like the best piece of writing.
How dare you?
It's like I was thinking back to my college days of being in spoken word, circles and all this stuff. I was like, whoa, this is awesome. This is really cool. And so it was very intimidating to be invited on the show. But I had a great time. And again, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. And I'll say this, as intimidated as you are, I have to write on this show every week after Jake gets done writing.
No, you guys are so ridiculous.
Courtney, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one. Welcome back to the Critical Error Game of the Year show. In addition to these interviews that we've done, which, first of all, how great is Barrett, Courtney? Just a class act.
Oh my God.
In addition to these interviews, we also wanted to hear from members of the Critical Error Nation about the games that they really liked this year. So we reached out to the people in the Jake and Peter tier, because who would know what belongs on the show better than us? It's the Jake and Peter tier, of course. And we asked them to write a little bit about their favorite games of the year. So we're going to read some of these right now. Jake, do you want to start with our first bit of writing?
I will. So this one is from Robert Quesada, who said, now first, they sent us a long post, and we wanted like 150 words. So I took the liberty. I went in there and I played editor. So here's what we've got from Robert. So my favorite game that I have played in 2025 would be Pokemon Scarlet. I had so much fun with the community and playing with my friends, and the fact that me and my friends completed the Pokedex together will be a highlight for me. But instead of talking about my favorite game, I will explain what was my best gaming moment in 2025. It all started with a Pokemon game that came out 2021, Pokemon Shining Pearl. For years, I've always wanted a shiny god. I refused nefarious ways, because I always wanted a legit version. I beat the game, got to the Elite Four, went to the Spear Pillar, and I started hard resetting. I had everything planned out. I reset, I tried and tried. I was impressed when I made it to 1,000 attempts. Months and months resetting. Years kept going on. My will is strong and wavering, but still strong. Then 2025 hits one fateful day. It happened. It was yellow. I used a Master Ball. I was happy. I was excited. I was thrilled. My luck turned around. That was my best 2025 gaming experience. Peak. Wow.
Peak.
There it is.
Huge.
There it is. Just the grind.
Are you big on getting shiny Pokemon? I know you wrote your thing about how shiny Pokemon are kind of like, the economy of shiny Pokemon is different now. But are you like a shiny collector?
No, not at all. I think for me, where I stand with shiny Pokemon is that they used to be about discovery, and they have pivoted, and now they're about collection. Now they are about...
Interesting.
Yeah, so
interesting.
it kind of took two parts of Pokemon, and it used to be representative of one part, but now it's representative of a completely different aspect of the game.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, but I kind of understand. I think a lot of Pokemon players feel this way, where it's like not even the game. It's just having this companion, this part of their life, like the ritual, the thing that they do. And maybe that's just what's most important to them in any given year. It's not the kind of like revelatory experience of a storytelling medium, but the comforting one, right?
I got a shiny Pokemon in Legend ZA. The big rat. I don't know what. It was a Pokemon. I was like, oh, cool. I don't want this, but
probably Pat Rat.
I don't know. It was like just like a
I don't know.
rat in the street. It's like, fine, come with me. You're mine
Then
now.
he evolves into the Watchog, that little sicko. Oh my god.
I couldn't tell you. Jake, let me read you the entry from Mayro.
Sick.
Kirby Air Riders looked bad. I watched the direct and left underwhelmed. Despite this, I ended up caving to the hype of those around me, and after finally playing City Trial, it was worse than I expected.
Oh!
You aimlessly drive around the exact same map, then split into tiny groups for a minigame that usually isn't very fun. But then something changed, Jake. I was watching the famous streamer Jake Knows It, and he called for me specifically to hop on City Trial. I was confused. I am both Jake and Peter, so how could I join? But I did. And Jake killed me multiple times. And also admitted to targeting me. From then on, my view of the aimless City Trial changed forever. Its aim wasn't to build towards some shitty mini game. It was to bully whoever looked at me funny. Next game, I beat his ass.
Yep.
Now I love Kirby Air Riders.
Oh my god. This is so true. I remember this stream. Oh my god.
Are you still playing?
I am still playing. I like that game quite a bit. I think it's really nice. Yeah, it's fun for exactly this. And I think the experience of playing online with a room of people from like my stream whose names I recognize.
Oh, certainly.
Like the other day we just were on Discord and I was like, does anybody want to join the room? And it is fun because truthfully, I see Mayro fly across my screen and I go, this is something for me to do for the next minute. And I just bully Mayro. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, this is a good time. That's Kirby Air Riders is a great game. I wrote that review for Kotaku and the other day I posted, I think it's a strength of this review that depending on how you read it, you either think I'm way too positive or way too negative on the game, which is it's kind of how I feel about it. It's kind of like, I think depending on how you approach it, you can have largely different takeaways from that game. And I think it's really about just going into it, being like accepting of what it is, of just being like, yeah, this is what I'm in the mood for right now. Don't try to force it. Don't try to play it for 6 hours in one day. Just go to it when you want that little taste.
Yeah.
Oh.
What do you think, Jake? Next interview?
Let's hit our next guest. And let's welcome our next guest, Autumn Wright, an incisive video games critic, a columnist at Unwittable with work that has been seen across the video game landscape and work that, I must add, has been oft referenced on the Critical Error podcast. Maybe the most referenced, if not in competition.
I would say Autumn is probably the person who we talk about the most on our show.
The most referenced. So had to get the guest spot for this 2025 Game of the Year episode. Autumn, we're so excited to hear what you have prepared for us.
Thanks, guys. Should I just get into this?
Please.
Okay. I'm taking a gamble on my Game of the Year. I'm betting that Of the Devil Episode 2 is going to hit as hard as its prologue and first episode hit me earlier this year. Here's a pitch. Fuse Ace Attorney's absurdist criminal legal comedy with sarcastic cyberpunk world building that holds up to cross-examination. Make every crime scene, interrogation, and trial something to bet on, and draw it like an unholy fusion of moldy online pop art inspired by Ruiko Matsuzaki and Shigenori Soejima, which, if you know ball, means this is going to be about the worst woman. A criminal defense attorney, choppy scarlet hair and a high ponytail, wears a corset over her shirt and a small cape like a dominatrix. She'll take your case. Public defenders don't really have much of a choice here. It's hard to get away with murder. There are more cameras than screens, ocular mods are admissible evidence, phones automatically file police reports. So, an unresolved serial murder is like edging the state prosecutor. And this is Toxic Eerie. The evidence is my deck. I've got a killer lawyer, and I'm betting on red.
Ooh.
Oh my God. Okay. This is so for the listeners. I just want to, from the jump, This was the last one we're recording, and definitely the most like literary minded one in terms of the writing. I had to reseat myself a couple of times because I was like, oh my God, Autumn's making jokes right now. Autumn's like doing something with that. That was so. Can you just from the jump, for the people that might not know, because I think what you've done for us is you have given us the gift of bringing a game that most of our listeners have probably never heard of. So so what is this game, Of the Devil Episode 2?
Yeah, so Of the Devil is this deduction visual novel from Nth Circle. The prologue and first episode released earlier this year. The second episode is releasing next week. It is my Christmas present.
Huge!
And so, it is... like an Ace Attorney, you play as a public defender. It's in the cyberpunk setting that is very much doing an iRobot thing. Mm-hmm. There are androids, warm body androids. Central murder mystery is going to be like very much of that book, but lots of other stuff going on around it. And it just blew me away. And has left the biggest impression on me. Just the episode 0 prologue of it. You play that for like 2 hours as a self-contained little thing. It's so good. It hits so hard. Punches above its weight. Gets all the style points. And another reason I said it's a gamble is also because I don't know anything about the studio, people working there, but they're clearly they're onto something. They have some really good influences. Their art direction is incredible. Like I say, it looks like this fusion of Danganronpa with Persona 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can I ask about this? So what is it that is so appealing? I mean, I'm you got the trailer going up and everything like that. It's like the art style is so, like you said, it's like Danganronpa and Persona 5, and it's in the cyberpunk setting and all of that. Is it like the writing of the characters, the overall plot? Like, what is it that's so gripping to you about it?
All of the characters are so lovable, and they're all kind of terrible in their own ways.
Yeah.
So it's, that's really in the vein of a Danganronpa or 100 line. The world building of the cyberpunk setting, I've seen a lot of cyberpunk settings. This one really holds up. It's very humorous. It's fleshed out in the way that it explores what a surveillance capitalism will look like. And yeah, it just has, the reason I turn to this literary style is because I can't narrow it down. I can't pin it down and say, this is what it's doing.
Yeah.
That's making me feel so strongly. So I'm just going to try to show you what I'm feeling as I play this, instead of doing the actual analysis. But yeah, and also, all the lesbians in your audience are going to love this game. I'm just saying, it's for the girls. If you want to see the girls kiss,
okay.
Huge.
I'm gonna make a lot of the times people bring stuff up here, and I try to bring it back to a novel that I really like, or just something that I have experience with, it, something that I do understand, so that I can better understand whatever material we're talking about. I'm gonna bring in a weird comparison this time. Earlier this year on Netflix, I watched an adaptation of a manga that I couldn't even tell you the name of, but the premise was that it was a school for gambling. Everybody was gambling. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the name? Rui Gaga.
I don't even know. And I think they changed it for the Netflix adaptation. But yeah, Peter, get on the case.
Kakegurui, compulsive gambler.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And just style wise, I'm seeing a lot of that here. And I think it's there is an emotional grammar to the idea of gambling that is more than just kind of the spectacle of what that provides for its premise. And I think if I think about that show manifesting risk and reward in these kind of ludic extremes, I think that like Danganronpa, there's almost this fun drama in arguing for the truth when the truth itself is such like an unstable concept. And that's what I really like about a lot of these games that position themselves as like courtroom-esque drama. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's that combination of this like very melodramatic, romantic arguing. And like, what does that mean? It's not just about like finding the answer. It's about this like representation of what we are going to say the truth is. And I don't know. It's like almost using deduction and rhetoric to carve out and claim like a marginal truth.
Yeah, and what does that mean in this setting where, you know, corporate monopoly has shaped the world into this insomniac city? That's like cyberpunk, just as the setting, lends itself to so much biting like capital commentary, and it really carves out this idea of like who does get away with murder in this world. It's the corporations. Wow. It's very clear about that. I didn't say too much more about it, but the gambling, you can, when you're talking to investigators or prosecutors, you can, you know, like call a bluff in someone's argument, right? And like but you have to have the card, right? You know, from the evidence you got and stuff. And, you know, as you're just like walking around different environments, crime scenes, doing a little point and click adventure part of it all, you're like, if you, you know, find a data pad that has this news story about some new like kind of android or something that's going on with these new androids, you can read it, and like this is part of the world building. There's a lot of like news articles that you can read that have a really good sarcastic tone to them. You can read as much of them before you would have to biometrically subscribe to read the full article, of course. But doing that gets you chips that you can use later to bet on during the arguments, right?
Wow, interesting. Yeah,
I think you were sort of talking about this idea of like in the cyberpunk setting, the idea of like truth is so interesting because of like cyberpunk sort of at its core is in conversation with the idea of like corporate interest and how that takes over everything. You know what I mean? In the extremes of that genre. And so the idea of doing like a courtroom drama or a like detective story or whatever you want to call it in that setting, I think is really fascinating. And I'd be curious to see and like compare it to how this game of the devil compares to like some of the like detective like police work stuff that happened in like Cyberpunk 2077, because like that was the stuff that like in that game there were a handful of things that kind of like let me down in that game. But that was like such a big miss for me because it seemed like kind of fundamentally uninterested in talking about the big stuff that makes cyberpunk so compelling, and like the idea of pushing back against that in the sense of like what is truth and what is justice when those things are so kind of like bastardized and like twisted and stuff like that in this sort of like hyper intense setting. So this sounds so neat. This sounds like so. I've literally never heard of this. This sounds so cool.
Yeah, I have you seen this? I don't know about you, but every time a top whatever games of the year list pops up on my feed, I look at every single one of them.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Have you seen this on a list yet?
Me? No. Have you?
No, Autumn.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, cool. Wow. Oh my God. Ground floor. I want to see people in the comments of this video going, whoa, that sounds like something I'm going to check out. And to be honest, maybe I don't want to expose the critical error viewership too much, but this sounds like an I feel like people that listen to this show are actually going to be all about this.
Also, if you play it and you have a strong reaction to something that happens in like the prologue, especially, please at me.
Yeah. Oh my God!
I want to relive it vicariously through you. Okay.
Yes, Jake, you're so right though.
About what a crazy thing to say. What literally, video game companies should take note. That is the most enticing little like get me to play a game I've ever heard. Hey, you might have an intense reaction to something that happens very early on. It's like, oh, okay, all right, well then I'll go see it. I'll go see, yeah. Oh my God.
I made a joke post about this a couple months ago where I said I think this has like one of the best first pages in video games.
Okay.
the part of the intro spiel where it's like setting the like it's doing all the setting for this first scene. It introduces Morgan, the main character, with it's hard to get away with murder these days. It's just an incredible line.
It's a good hook.
Yeah,
a defense attorney, right? And again, part of I think in like my piece, I say there's this absurd criminal legal comedy to Ace Attorney, because like it's joking how there's something like an over 90% conviction rate in Japanese like prosecution, right? And so this is higher here, right? It's purposely doing that. It's pulling on that, but like definitely framed in like something that was relatable as an American.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, what does it mean when like the central premise of iRobot is that someone got away with murder?
Yeah.
Do you? This is a little bit of a left field question. Do you feel that this is the kind of game that a lot of people in our kind of like typical games media, games people circles, if they were exposed to it, had the opportunity to play it, knew about it, would like it and would get attached to it? Is this a like people just don't know about this kind of game?
I don't know.
It's a tough question. It's a tough question. Yeah,
because I think it could, because like that there's just this game that came out a couple of weeks ago that was also going for the Ace Attorney thing much more faithfully. Like Ace Attorney, it's like you're on a train, you're some American college students, the art style looks like Ace Attorney, you're like doing the murder mystery on a train thing, and everyone kept talking about this art style. It's a really great art style. Like I almost bought it just because of the art style. I didn't hear too much about the writing of that game though. I didn't hear anyone have like a really strong opinion on how well that game's written, how the mystery really plays out.
Are you talking about Detective Instinct, that game, the one that looks like a DS game? Okay, yes, I not to completely expose myself, I bought that game on my Switch. Okay. I haven't played it yet. So yeah, that one did get to me. You're right. It did have a lot of good buzz. Yeah.
So yeah, I think people but that got a lot of buzz because of that art style, and I think the art style for this game appeals to people who play crunchy, weird, or esoteric Japanese games.
I see what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
But I do think that aesthetic has been popularized. Like I think you could point this to someone who really likes Metaphor Fantasio's art direction.
Yeah.
And I think there's actually a lot of similarity there.
Yeah, no, 100%. I totally agree. It's interesting too. Like you brought up the writing of the other one and how you haven't heard anything about it. And it's like, I think these sorts of like courtroom games, like just have to like, and like visual novel adjacent games, like just live and die by that. And it's interesting. Like there's a line for me about like it passing over into being bad that is actually also good. Like I think like Danganronpa is great, but I also would never be like, it's written so well. Because I'm like, I think it's kind of trashy, and that's what I really like about it. You know what I mean? And so there is this like line about these sorts of things that I find really interesting.
Yeah. So actually, that reminds me of something Joshua Rivera wrote earlier this year about 100 Line. Oh, yeah. All those game journalists on the internet.
Yeah, right.
For wrestling, I think for Rogue earlier this year about 100 Line, and set about this kind of game where it's like, it's constantly teasing you that it's not going to be more than it is. But we're drawn to it because we want to see if it's really more than it is there. Yeah. And right out the gate of the devil, so much more.
That's awesome. Okay. That's awesome. This looks so cool. I'm like looking at just like also the just like hero image of the main character here, and it's like, oh, like I can see too, like it's kind of has that like Chainsaw Man aesthetic a little bit about just like things are just like grimy and like dealing with like crime in a world that like who cares about crime, but like we care about crime kind of stuff. Like this is cool. This looks really sick.
Yeah.
Please.
There's a thing this does, a stylistic choice that I relate to Signalis a little bit too, where it hard cuts out of the scene into an excerpt of the script.
Oh.
So it says the audio cuts to like white noise, and like the screen is just red. Morgan, they're like insects. Line number 654. To deliver a few lines like that,
Yeah.
And like there's something about the pacing of that, the delivery of that is so effective, and it's elevating what the writing is doing.
That's my shit. Like, Jake, that I like that. I like
know.
that a lot.
Literally, the word Signalis was spoken.
It's all I need. It's all I need.
Yeah. Speaking of for the lesbians.
Yes. Oh, for real. Gosh, really, all anyone needs to be like, oh, it's kind of like Signalis, and even if it's not true, I'm like, yes, please, anything.
Yeah. There's also, for a visual novel, this has one of the coolest sequences of the good guy and bad guy giving a speech at the same time, cutting back and forth, where it's like, I think each side is saying the sentence I'm not hearing, and then you have moments where you hear both of them say the same thing.
That's really cool. That's like theater. That's really fun.
Yeah, and then it ends on black, and you just have the dialogue box that says both.
Cool.
Wow, that's how fun. This sounds so, like, for lack of a more precise term, intentional in terms of the different expressions of like what's happening on screen. That's really cool. It's like one to really like the game is trying to signal to you to like, no, actually think about these choices that we're making. It's not just like about taking in the plot, right? Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, right. And so episode 2 is coming out next week. There's a trailer. Don't watch that. That's all I'll say.
Don't watch.
But the main character is getting like a new character design, like it's the second season of a show or like a second game. And she goes from having this like dominatrix kind of outfit to streetwear with like a bra and open jacket look. It's speaking to me.
Okay. Understood. Again, the Critical Error Nation, I'm sure, also understands.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of, the second thing that we asked you for today was just something to talk about in terms of what we are calling Critical Error of the Year, something that you would like to see maybe carried into 2026, a standard for people with positions like ourselves that you think like, what's something we could improve? What's a way that we could talk about video games better? What is something that you're seeing in the space right now that's annoying? I'm curious to hear what came to mind for you with this.
A lot did.
Yes.
I imagine.
Yes.
So I was unsure what I wanted to talk about specifically, but then something happened today.
Oh.
Today.
I saw a post.
Is this about the Game Boy? Is this about the fucking handheld thing?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's a drone, right? It's like a drone metal.
But I've got to work to my bigger point.
Yeah. Okay. Bring it in.
Okay. So there was a post on Blue Sky from this outlet I've never heard of called Retro Dodo.
Yeah.
Linking to an article with the headline "Mod Retro reveals limited edition handheld made from attack drone material." Okay, so that's true.
Oh,
that's true. But the post, this is unlike anything we've seen before in all our years of handheld reviewing. That's also true.
That's also true. Okay.
This article has since been posted 533 times.
Oh my gosh!
Because the actual body of it starts to give away. So towards the end of this glowing review of what this handheld is, we also want to make you aware, as journalists, that Mod Retro does have somewhat of an affiliation with Anduril. So if you're against military actions or political involvement in some form, it's probably not best buying a handheld made of attack drone metal. If you don't care, then by all means, snag one of the craziest handhelds we've seen all year.
Huh.
What? Okay, I just want to make clear to the listener, just in case that did not come across, I'm going to read this sentence in full as it is written. Okay.
Can you real quick, Jake, to describe this,
Peter,
because this is
Peter, don't even worry. Don't even worry.
Go right ahead.
I am
Go
all
right
over
ahead.
it. Okay. We also want to make you aware, parentheses, as journalists, close parentheses, that Mod Retro does have somewhat of an affiliation with Anduril, or however you say that, and that's hyperlinked. So if you're against military actions or political involvement in some form, it's probably not best buying a handheld made of attack drone metal, ... The ...
is quite bad.
If you don't care, then by all means snag one of the craziest handhelds we've seen all year. Pre-orders are now open with a hyperlink and end on Christmas
It's an
Day.
affiliate link. It's
It's bad.
God.
It's bad. This is so. If you're not, this is a Game Boy, like a Game Boy Color, like OG Game Boy, made from attack drone metal. So, Autumn, what don't you like about this? What sort of bothered you about this?
So this has been roundly lambasted today,
of course,
by games media folks who are like, Mod Retro is evil. The idea that this is a marketing angle, this is a thing you should celebrate and make a console out of. Like the materials that are used to make actual drones for the US government, that's evil. The way that this outlet is talking about it, also evil. We shouldn't do this. You know, this is roundly agreed upon in the circle of games media that I am most familiar with as bad. I think this is just what the games industry is.
Yeah.
I think it is just a matter of degree in both tone of the reporting and the content of what this is about. This is what games are. This is what the games industry is. This is what games media does. The problem is they put the conflict minerals on the outside this time.
I think that's fair.
Wow.
I think that's fair because it is so like incredibly on the nose, right? Because it's like, oh, hey, here's a handheld console that's made, using attack drone metal. It's so funny. It's like, not funny to say. It's just so incredibly on the nose about like, hey, this sucks. It's so easy to identify. But Autumn, obviously we have referenced your piece on Aftermath about the BDS movement a lot on our show. We referenced it in our video or our episode about that as well. And if you sort of think about it, at the end of the day, based on what the BDS movement is asking of people, that's also what the Xbox is. It's not made literally out of this, but I think what you mentioned here is like degrees of separation, right? And like how close, like proximity, how close is this to these organizations and that's that sort of thing. And I think that's fascinating. I think it's a fascinating thing to point out and to like connect with this, because there's some degrees of separation in terms of like visually and whatever else from Xbox or these other companies, because it's not just Xbox that is involved with these sorts of things. We talk about like Battlefield, right? Or other games that like depict modern conflict and have very clear sides and politics to them. But with those games, there is a more separation than this. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And we could talk about this as it relates to military and industry. We can also just talk about this, how it relates to a way games media operates in wanting to kind of separate bad things out from what the industry is, right? Crunch is an aberration. It is not a norm ever. Even though we can find reporting on crunch for every major game made in America and Europe. But we don't treat that as something that's normal, right? I'm running. I just blanked on the other examples, but yeah.
No, please. Yeah, it's incredibly salient, I think, and just this. I think what you're making clear for me right now is this dependency that I think games media has as an apparatus in terms of how it operates now between like this separation almost has to be made between games and the conditions of their existence. And what this piece about this Game Boy thing is doing is that it's we're just being exceptionally honest, actually. We're just being extremely straightforward about exactly what is happening here, rather than working to kind of make that separation as best that we can.
It's funny. I think one of the things that stands out to me with all of this as well is sort of the bit that Autumn you brought from this review, like specifically about like, so if you're okay with all of that, you can buy the Game Boy or whatever it's called, the mod retro, whatever, right? Yep. Like, and it's this like insane amount of whiplash, because it's like, hey, just so you know, this is, you know, in affiliation with Anduril, however you want to pronounce it, whatever. I love, by the way, I just love how the Lord of the Rings has been co-opted by all this stuff. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And it's like, but if you're okay with all of that stuff, with the drone strikes and the, you know, murder of innocent people and all this stuff, if you're cool with that, you can buy this incredibly cool, this so cool retro Game Boy. Because also, if you didn't know, it does play Game Boy and Game Boy Color cartridges. It is made of metal, and it comes with a one-of-a-kind display that takes your AA batteries like the good old days.
Like the good old days.
Yeah, it is a remarkable piece of retro tech, according to this review. Pre-orders go live now and go through Christmas. So
yeah, I guess this is just, I mean, if this feels like it is functioning as an arm of the marketing for the game manufacturer, it is. And that's what most video games journalism is doing in practice right now.
Is there you know what, I would love to, we have been referencing that piece that Peter brought up all year, and that piece was written, I think, like in like the spring or summer. It's been online for quite some time. I would love to ask you, do you feel like you have seen any kind of material or meaningful movement one way or the other when it comes to games media's ability to address this issue or talk about it at all?
I want to be careful because things have changed. Things have changed. I can say that. I feel like I've spent most of the year watching any hope I had for what games media is or can be thoroughly be snuffed out. I do think it is very obviously there is either willful ignorance at this point, or there is some force greater than the journalism that is preventing the journalism from happening. And in either case, that proves that games journalism is not doing journalism. Okay, so this week, People Make Games published their video on the boycott. And I think that, you know, might actually do a lot of good to raise awareness in a way that, like, I just can't in the channels I was able to write through. But in that video, Chris lays out a chart of the coverage at games outlets, major games outlets. And you see, like, IGN had 0 articles talking about BDS this year, which I would say is damning. But I have seen other people respond to, you know, that chart, say, it decontextualizes things, and sure, it does. I wrote about it in my piece for Aftermath about the boycott when it was announced in April. And I've seen other people bring up that in 2021, IGN tried to do a Palestinian charity fundraiser, right? Of course. And corporate came down hard on them, right? And so it's not fair to say that IGN has not done any coverage of this.
Sure.
Except that's just true. They have not done any coverage of it. So please tell me, are the people remaining at IGN, do they not care about this? Or are they unable to do their job? Because either way, that means that games journalism is dead.
It's funny, right? You brought up the Peter and I talked about that video, that People Make Games video, and something that I actually thought that was the first little bit of movement when that was published online, that I said to Peter maybe yesterday, like, oh, I think that this might actually move people. I think that this might actually have some motion. And something that I think you recognize in bringing up this mod retro thing is that we're all online, the kind of mass online performative dunking on this very obviously evil thing. And there is a path forward that is not necessarily the one with the highest degree of moral clarity. But if you can make any issue something that everyone feels that they have permission to, and will be rewarded with social currency for maybe performatively dunking on, that effort can have maybe like real consequences for in terms of coverage and what people find they are empowered to or not say, right?
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me, this comes up anytime we talk about Zionism in Palestine, that people are performing this outrage and that performing that they care about these things. But we also see this, we talk about like performative reading and stuff. And you know, the place I land on is, who the hell cares?
Yeah, right.
If it actually gets something done because there is this outrage about it, then yeah, okay, good, do that. Be performatively mad. If it sways an institution that should be adversarial into actually doing their job and being adversarial.
It's interesting. Jake and I were talking about this yesterday, about this idea of how it can be frustrating, the performative nature of a lot of this sort of stuff, but also at the end of the day, even, and I think this is to your point, like even when people are being performative about it, there is a cultural shift going on, because at the very least, people feel comfortable enough to say like, well, we all agree, blah, 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 right? And as soon as that starts to happen, I think that's when we do start to see the dominoes fall a little bit.
Yeah, and I really need that to happen in the game space, because, you know, I think I was just talking to Austin Walker for little teaser, the next entry in my column, about the work that Waypoint did in the 2010s, and the sense that, you know, in all of cultural criticism, but especially in games over the Biden eras, we went back to brunch.
Yeah, sure.
And it really feels like we just dug our heads into the sand this time. And, you know, there's generous readings of why that happened, but I'm not feeling very generous. I'm feeling mad. I'm feeling burnout. I'm feeling like I actually risked something. And I can tell that it's affected my work. So I don't have sympathy left for people who can't do this, right? Yesterday I was reading about prisoners on hunger strikes about this stuff. And you can't not post about Xbox.
Autumn, I'll say this. You said at some point in this conversation about how, like, you know, you wrote that piece for Aftermath, and that you sort of said, and so if I'm putting words in your mouth, or if I'm misrepresenting your point, let me know. But there's a difference between you writing that and then this video from People Make Games, and how, you know, hopefully this People Make Games video opens people's eyes or helps make people feel more comfortable, or is able to enact some real tangible change. And I know it doesn't mean a ton, as I am one person, but I will say this. You posted that piece on Aftermath. I read it as I was downloading Oblivion on my PlayStation. I'd been given a code from Xbox. I was downloading it on my PlayStation. I was like, oh, hey, here's the thing Jake retweeted. I'm literally reading it, and I'm doing this thing where sometimes, we talked about this a little bit in our episode about BDS stuff, is like sometimes you read something that is confrontational, and it takes a second for you to really like know if it's the time for you to be able to confront yourself about it. So I'm literally reading pieces of it, playing some Oblivion, like the early hours of it, that night, going back, reading more, playing a little bit more, reading more, and thinking about it for myself. And the one thing that I have repeated over and over again to myself, and that has influenced my work, is the idea of you have to know. And it doesn't mean like everyone makes their own choices on what they're going to do, right? And at the end of the day, I can't judge you for that necessarily, but you have to know, and when you know, that is going to influence how you're going to behave, and that can influence what you do. So I will say this, regardless of whether or not you think you had the same amount of reach with that piece as the People Make Games video, you reached me, and you did change how I viewed things, and you did change how I behaved from there with my action and all of that. So I just want to say 100%, at the very least, you changed one person, and I really, really appreciate you writing that piece.
Thank you.
I want to echo that as well. Yeah, I want to echo that too. I forget sometimes we bring up that piece so often that you actually named me in that piece. And I think that that is something that to have somebody you respect be like, oh, that thing that you were doing actually did matter. I don't know how hard I'm going to go into the paint with anything if it feels like everyone is against me all the time. And so I think to see that it was there is an affection, and there is something that is reaching people that maybe are not the same people as the People Make Games video, but I know that that reached me and changed how I talked about this kind of thing online. And I know that, like, in the comments of our Xbox episode on Critical Error, we had somebody write in the comments that they were giving a speech at their university about BDS, and they found our podcast inspiring. And our podcast would not have been what it was if not for you writing that piece.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have known if I had not seen that, because no one's talking about it, really. I mean, little bits and pieces here, but it reached me and it changed how I behaved, and it truly means something to me. So thank you very much.
And thank you. Yeah, I mean, the reaction I've gotten was kind of surprising to me, how many people in my, kind of lefty spaces even didn't know about BDS.
Yeah.
And that was surprising for me. Made me interrogate some stuff about, like, my background, where I've come from, what I've been doing. And I guess, like, as much as I feel like games media has failed, I failed in not being able to do enough. The point of that was in part to put something on the record that addressed my colleagues and, says, now,
yes,
you are making a decision when you review Black Ops 7 this fall, when you review Elder Scrolls, right? And I guess, I am reminded of, if I can be a little twee and think about another video game. Did you two play Thousand X Resist?
Yeah.
Oh, I did. Yes, of course.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the dad recollecting on the Hong Kong protest and saying, like, we showed history that we tried, that people cared.
Yeah.
And, I don't think that's going to do much for Palestinians, but I do think if someone wants to in the future look back at what was the US media doing to manufacture consent, I hope that us having conversations like this puts on record that a lot of people were complicit, right?
There are a lot of good points that you brought up there, and I will also add truth to something you said early on, which was kind of this surprise at how not as many people in, like, lefty circles knew about BDS as you would imagine. I had an experience recently where I was talking about BDS to a friend of mine who, like, works in the nonprofit space and, like, is extremely, like, on the same wavelength as me in terms of politics. And I said BDS, and she goes, I'm sorry, what is that? And I was, like, aghast. I like was shocked. And so I think sometimes you and I may be coming from similar backgrounds in some ways. It is important to reckon with even that level of it and go, man, how many people could have done something at any point in time to make it so the person who has not yet been reached about BDS didn't have to be literally me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of my conviction for this originates in growing up in a very, like, Zionist community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's rooted in being lied to myself. But it's also rooted in realizing that people around me, and, like, it wasn't just the Zionism, it was also the class. I grew up in a very, like, wealthy suburb, economically diverse, but a school where a lot of 16-year-olds get Mustangs, right?
Sure.
And, you know, I remember I always think about the discussions I had in like my AP literature class in 12th grade, talking about I realize in hindsight how my English teacher gave us
Mm.
all the criticism of the bourgeoisie in like French lit, French lit, uh, as a way to try to plant some seeds in our minds, right?
Cool.
But then I remember all these insane conversations I had with people who just don't. I guess like the point I want to get to is that I think
Yeah.
I've realized growing up and now realize where I'm at now. I'm surrounded by people who would not walk away from Omelas, or I'm surrounded by people who would get to the hills, would get to the horizon, and would turn around and walk back.
Omelas, of course, referencing a very famous short story about a utopian society that I think everybody should read and check out if they haven't already. Kind of like a seminal work of short fiction.
It's called the ones who walk away from Omelas, right?
Some version of that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think something that you've kind of passively been saying over the course of this conversation too is something that I've personally been having a reckoning with over the past few days, which was this kind of plausible deniability of people in the space who I go, maybe they just don't know yet. Maybe they just don't know. And I think it's just now gotten to the point because of that people make games video that I can no longer allow myself to think that. And I have to reckon with the fact that, I mean, not to share too much, but I think we even experienced a version of this with kind of the response to our podcast about the issue. Yeah. And knowing that there is a intentional and purposeful kind of turning of the head when it comes to specific issues. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, Autumn, this was a large part of why we wanted to have you on this episode. Is that I think you keep us honest and you keep our standards high. And I think sometimes when we are constantly in the ritual of trying to practice a good balance of standards that we can feel good about while still being generous and charitable to the people around us to the degree that they I think deserve it. So you know, that is something that we're never going to get perfect, and it is a constant battle for us. But I think it is important to us and our platform that when you come on and talk to us about this, I kind of want you to go as hard as possible and to truly and to echo something we had we were talking about in a prior conversation on this podcast to make it count. And yeah. I appreciate you coming on here and making it count. I genuinely, yeah.
I'm really happy to do it. Thanks,
awesome.
Guys.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here.
All right. And Autumn, anything else for the critical error audience before we let you go? Yeah, the nation. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it'll still be going on, but like mentioned at the top, I am a columnist at Unwinnable Monthly. Unwinnable Monthly is a really great independent publication covering all sorts of cultural criticism, and we publish in like a monthly digital magazine format. And we've been having various sub drives, and I think like right now, if you subscribe, you get like the past year of magazines for free. And I mean, we post most of our stuff for free eventually too. I have a column in that it's been on a hiatus, but it's coming back in January, where I interview games critics. Y'all are on notice for that. And it's been really great. The reception on it's been really great. I'm really excited for the next conversations coming up next year. You can find me mostly on Blue Sky at the Autumn Wright. I just had a piece go up at Bullet Points Monthly, which is another great indie video game publication. I wrote about Battlefield 6.
I saw this.
Go to bulletpoints.com, I believe. Actually, let me double check that. Bulletpointsmonthly.com.
There it is.
You can read their latest issue, all about Battlefield 6. I have something in there. The other folks there are always great, insightful critics.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was maybe the only video games related piece this year that like brought me to the edge of tears. So I highly recommend people checking out that piece for sure.
Thank you.
Autumn, thank you again for coming on. So just insightful, and I honestly I'm about to go and try to get me some of the devil.
Yeah, me too.
Please let me know how you guys feel about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Autumn Wright, someone who we cite a lot. I think her writing is pretty fantastic. And that is someone who I think really understands the call of what journalism is about. Do you know what I mean? In a way that I think oftentimes might get misconstrued or misunderstood within games journalism. And
one of the bravest writers in the video games writing space, no doubt.
I would 100% agree.
Yeah.
That is someone who I aspire to be more like. Yes?
Did you hear that?
No.
Oh my God.
I hope it came up on the mic. What was it?
My phone just like woke up and there was like an AI voice being like, "What can I help you with today?" And it scared me.
Here's what an AI voice can help me with. Nothing, motherfucker.
It truly frightened me. The voice of this AI woman just like jumped out at from my phone and started speaking to me.
Was it Siri?
Oh, I don't know. Get me out of this, Peter. Get me out of this. We have a Jake and Peter tier review.
We certainly do. We certainly do. From one, Evan Snee.
Yes.
It reads thusly. Split Fiction took my spouse and I through an engaging, low-friction adventure. But what we treasured most were the diversions we took along the way. Some of these were very much designed to be playgrounds, like when we found a garden in which our characters' feet sprouted flowers in their wake with no greater purpose than to goof around. These moments encouraged us to breathe. But even outside these overt diversions, my spouse and I made our own fun. We would come upon a sunset vista while riding our dragons and just pause. Our controllers dropped to the table and we cried from laughter, whilst a dying star's waves of radiation evaporated our characters for the 20th time in a row. And when we came to the closing moments, we subconsciously pumped the brakes, not wanting the journey to end. This is my most treasured gaming experience of 2025.
Shout out to Evan Snee for citing the dying star's wave of radiation evaporating our characters. That part was hard. That part was really, oh my God. I remember the second that you read that, I was like, oh my God, I remember that part of the game. That was so frustrating. Sarah was like, when do I jump? And I'm like, Sarah, I don't know. Like, good.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Oh my God.
I love that he brings up the flowers coming out of the feet. So I played this with my friend Josh, and Josh is a great cartoonist.
Oh, fun!
And will frequently, when we lived together, he's an old roommate of mine. He would just draw Homer Simpson on Post-it notes.
Oh.
And so I had him draw Homer Simpson using the flowers in Split Fiction, and I was like, I can pretty much guarantee that you are the first person to do this.
Oh my
to
God!
Draw Homer Simpson in Split Fiction.
That's awesome. Yeah. I like Split Fiction a lot. I'm glad I got this shout out after talking about it on the pod last week and how like anybody who admits that they like Split Fiction, we look at them like an ape. Yeah. So congratulations to Evan Snee for being brave.
And saying what we all know, and that Split Fiction is fun.
I think that game should be relitigated sooner rather than later. There is a space for somebody to come in and just like, a great video title is "Stop Making Fun of Split Fiction." Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me hit you with our next review.
Please do.
This is from the former Renquar. This is now Rents.
Yeah.
Okay. Late 2024, I had the chance to replay the entire FromSoft lineup with a college buddy who has since moved far away.
A dream.
I'm gonna take a second here and actually remove myself from this because I just want to say I am fascinated by this playing through these, not thought of as multiplayer games together with somebody else.
I think it would be so fun to sit and like, for example, if we did a playthrough where I was able to sit next to you on the couch while you played like Dark Souls 3.
Wow.
How fun that would be.
awesome.
As me, someone who knows it really, really well, and you, someone who doesn't, like, you know what I mean? I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back to the review.
Please.
It was a wonderful experience which not only awakened a love for online multiplayer with friends, but also made me truly fall in love with the series through a greater understanding of the mechanics. So when Night Rain was announced that December, you can imagine my excitement. From reveal to release, the pure excitement was quite influential in helping me cope with my new job. And when the game released, it became something to look forward to nightly for quite some time. I've never before been so engrossed in a game for this long, and with the recent DLC, I may be stuck here for months to come. I've been very blessed to be able to fall back on it time and again this year. GOTY. I love this because I think something that's important to me as a person is looking forward to stuff. I think that having stuff to look forward to can really just like help you get through a lot. And it's like, you know, you're always thinking of deadlines, at least as an adult, you're always thinking of, I've got to get this done by this date. So to have a deadline that is deadline parentheses positive, I think actually can do a lot mentally.
Yeah, totally.
And this really speaks to that just like the hype of looking forward to a game. Yeah.
Can I say too, so Night Rain and Split Fiction were announced on the same night. It was at the Game Awards 2024. And what I love about both of these is a trend that I've noticed in games over the past like 2-3 years or so, which is just like a game gets announced and it's actually coming out within the next 6 months. Do you know what I mean? And I like that because it gives like, you know, hearing that, okay, that Fate of the Old Republic is coming out in like 2030. I'm like, cool, that isn't real, doesn't exist to me. For me, I'm like, there's no reason for me to be excited about that because it's just not a tangible moment in time for me at this point.
Yeah.
But saying like, hey, it's December, this game comes out in March. Hey, it's December, this game comes out in May. I think May was Night Rain, March was Split Fiction. It's like so nice because I'm like, oh no, that does give me something to think about and look forward to. Because it is like, March is like not that far away, all things considered. You know what I mean? I know it's like not fun to think about the passage of time in that way, but yeah, I
completely agree. Yeah,
I love this.
It definitely sits in your mind in a different way than something like the Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic does.
Yeah, because I just know that exists, like conceptually. Whereas, like, you know, Night Rain, it's like, oh, we got a trailer for this. Like, I can see, like, I know what this game is going to be.
Yeah, it's a real game. You can assign a feeling to it. But thank you again to the Jake and Peter tier members for supporting us on Patreon. If in case anybody is interested, again, you can check out patreon.com/criticalerror. I know going into the new year, we have talked about wanting to bring more content to Patreon for the people that support us. So that is something that we are definitely going to be exploring. We're having active conversations with our patrons about what that content could be right now. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to lock us in, but there are some things I'm excited about.
And Jake and I have been sort of going back and forth, but like, what if we did this? You know what I mean? Just in terms of like, what if we started doing something like this, or saying like, hey, here's something that happens a lot, like game reviews, for example. It's like, what does a critical error game review even look like? Probably not just us doing, you know, just writing a review in the same way that, you know, everyone else does, whatever. Like, what does that even look like for us? And the people in the Jake and Peter tier and the Critical Error Royalty, the nation in general, empowers us, emboldens us to do that. I would like to just give a shout out to everyone in the Jake and Peter tier, as we always do on every single episode. Evan Ponce rents no longer fuel for sound effects. That's what their name is in Patreon.
Man.
I love that. Evan Snee, Mayro, and Robert Quezada. Thank you all for being a part of this nation. Thank you to the Critical Error Royalty, whom I assume we have a sound effect for. Is that correct?
We do. This week, since this episode is coming out on Christmas, I will be looking for now the most Christmassy copyright-free song that I can find.
I like that. That's fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's play that. Ho, ho, ho. Were the Christmas vibes achieved? Only you can be the one to say. But speaking of Christmas, speaking of generosity, let's give another shout out to the Jake and Peter tier members: Evan Ponce, Rance, Ansel Trait, Evan Snee, Mayro, and Robert Quesada. Can you believe it? Can you believe the generosity of the Jake and Peter tier? Oh my God, let's keep this going. Our $10 Critical Error Royalty members. The show would not be the same without you. I'm talking about Connor Truelove, Andrew Bolkar, Danny Disaster, Sam Cedar, James Pierre Reed, Jacob Richter, Jared Cousineau, Sam Woods, Cole, Kale Chow, and Shin. Oh my God. The listeners know, the listeners recognize. They said, wait a second. Were those some new names? New members of the nation. Cannot tell you all, as the year is wrapping up here, how much I've been reflecting on your generosity. Sincerely, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
All right, enjoy this final interview that we have with one Joshua Rivera, someone that we absolutely admire and look up to immensely. I thought it was a great conversation. Here it is.
It was. Welcome, everybody. We are here with Joshua Rivera, an entertainment journalist and critic, a writer whose work is often seen in the game space as seminal and prescient, with so many bylines at Vulture, Slate, The Ringer, Vanity Fair. We are so delighted to have Joshua here with us today to share his game of the year for 2025. Please take it away.
Thank you so much for the enthusiastic introduction. I'm flattered. Thank you. So do I just read the thing that I brought right now? Is that
Please
do.
Do we go? All right,
Yeah.
cool. So I wrote a little thing, and it goes like this. I think a lot about celebration. That's a word people use a lot this time of year. I chafe at it, at the toxic positivity it implies, as if we need to close our eyes to the ills of the world to permit ourselves a bit of pleasure. Thoughts like this are why I choose Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles as my game for this year. Everyone knows about the story's unusual conviction, its articulation of class war, and the ways power doesn't just warp us, but uses us to preserve status quo. That's all there, and it's still good. The other thing people talk about with this game is how much it rewards you for breaking its rules. With patience and a vision, you can build up your team to be truly unstoppable in a way that's so spectacular. It feels like you're getting away with something. But mostly, I think of how these things sit together. The crushing institutional weight of power, the joy of banding together with your comrades and breaking its rules, refusing to turn away from the horror, but remembering to smile at the person next to you and believe in their worth. We can celebrate, and we can do it honestly and with integrity. We can sit with the horror and the joy, the hope and despair, because we are vast and wonderful. We do not have to turn away from any part of ourselves. We owe it to each other not to. And that's what I wrote.
Wow. I'm stewing a little bit.
I know, me too. I know, because this I think brought up a lot of different. So first off, I kind of went into this thinking that you were going to pick a different game. So when you said that this one, I was like, okay, time to reframe everything I was thinking. And it's funny. So Final Fantasy Tactics: Ivalice Chronicles, for people that are unaware, I think what I think about when I think about that game is a lot of this concept of revisionist history, who gets remembered, a lot of feudal power class, institutional rot. It is a game that reminds me so much of like Shakespeare's histories, where power is unstable and performative and deeply tied to legitimacy as opposed to morality. And I kind of love this this idea that you're hitting on about like celebration and these mixed feelings. There is a almost I don't know, I almost want to say like a Balzac idea in there about society as this kind of like grinding machine where ambition is rewarded and sincerity is punished. And you've got this character Ramza who refuses to accept his role in this world and kind of reads as a moral failure to the system rather than of one to himself. And I think there is kind of like this sense in that game of these constant conflicting feelings that are kind of emerge for the different characters in different ways, right?
Yeah. And in the game is constantly throwing this in Ramza's face, like interrogating, is he naive? Are you just naive? And that is something that, the world will also throw at you constantly. And like that what do you call it? There's that that notion of like being right at the wrong time. where like where it's like it's this confluence of things where it's just sort of like there are times when the world is ready to hear a moral voice, and there are
Mm.
times when it is not. And it's on you to not necessarily care about that,
Yeah, it's funny. It's almost tragic in like a classical sense about like in the way that like Antigone or like the Crucible would be, where I think it's like virtue and being like correct in the wrong time is not going to save you, and if anything, it might disqualify you from history. Oh my God. Oof.
You know what I was thinking about too is you're sort of talking about this idea of like the conflict between the idea of like pulling one over almost on the game, but then also sort of in this like sort of repressive or oppressive environment and stuff like that. It makes me think about Portal 1 because in the I love when like games have this sort of thing in them. There's a developer commentary like track for Portal. I think Valve has done it with most of their games, where when you can go and play it, and there's like little like icons you can click on or whatever, interact with, and it'll play a little, commentary from the devs. And there's a level in Portal 1 where they realized that a lot of players were discovering that there was a way to skip a large portion of it. And they initially went in and they changed the puzzle so that you couldn't do that anymore. But then the players were sort of like, oh, I thought I was going to be able to like pull one over on the game a little bit. And they put that back in so that people could sort of feel that way. And what I find so interesting is like this idea of pulling one over on the game or like being able to have this moment for yourself while still in this environment that is oppressive and whatever, because then what happens in Portal, you just go to the next puzzle. And and it's about sort of that, it's like being in a hospital almost, with how like sterile everything is and everything like that. So that's so fascinating.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that conveyed, because like one doesn't annihilate the other. You know, like, we're still in fucking hell. That's sort of like I feel people find it a drag. If you just point out or articulate or take issue with institutional failures, especially if like they're old, like people have heard it before. But I think everyone needs to articulate their reason for caring, for fighting. And it's not necessarily about winning. I think it's about finding that reason. I am not under any illusion. People sometimes like a negative comment I get on a lot of pieces I write is like, what do you want them to do about it? And it's just sort of like, I'm just a fucking writer, man. Like it's I am not a prescriptivist. I'm not here writing instructions for anybody. I am trying to figure out the way I wish to be a human in the world, and hoping that like at most the stuff that I write and process and think through helps you figure that out for yourself, whatever that means for you. I think what do you call it? I don't think it is like sorry, I lost my train of thought. But
no, I really appreciate what you're saying, because I feel like this idea of even bringing up the, well, what is your solution for your criticism to be constructive, something that a lot of people online say is important to them. The idea needs to be that you have a better idea than the thing that you are criticizing.
Yes.
And which is kind of funny, just when you take a step back and look at that, and maybe it's like you're being critical of capitalism, and they're like, okay, this piece really would have been served by somebody coming in here and writing, so we should abolish capitalism, and then all of a sudden everything's fine.
Thank you. No one, we didn't think of that. Oh my gosh.
But I think in terms of the game that we are talking about, and the kind of connection to a modern context here, I think something you are making clear to me is that, all throughout world history, but I think particularly American history, it's very easy for us to kind of draw a line through huge historical moments and see who the critics were at the time. And the ways in which we talk about the critics of different eras and movements has largely been imposed after the fact, something I think a lot of people miss. And kind of like heroes and villains of history are retroactively, designated and assigned. And there is something that I think, because history is a narrative construction rather than a neutral record, it is important to have these people who are operating not in terms of I am building tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be built by maybe people who aren't even born yet, but to play your role in this moment and to expose the people who will eventually be building tomorrow to ideas. Ta-Nehisi Coates, one of my favorite writers of all time, talks a lot about how, like, if you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, some critics would say not a lot of like important legislation really came directly out of that movement, but the importance there and the cultural significance of it was before legislation happens, before the world changes, an idea needs to be born. And so many ideas were built in and trained into people in different ways of thinking. The amount of small town book clubs that all of a sudden picked up Between the World and Me, like that is so huge. And I think that like that is not coming from anybody saying, here is the utopic version of a society that lacks racism, but here are the problems that you have never been exposed to, that I'm opening your eyes to for the first time ever.
Yeah, that and also, like, I'm glad you brought up Coates. There's when Coates was blogging, in the mid 2000s and early 2010s, he there and I can't for the life of me ever find this quote. Every once in a while I look it up because I want to cite it and I can't. And so, like, forgive me if you do find it and it's not verbatim, but he wrote something about like how because he was talking about why he cites rappers as much as he does like philosophers and stuff like that, and he says, I believe true beauty comes from the gutter and rises to and is appreciated at the top, and that has been like a mantra of mine. It's like I write for publications that flat out don't respect games, for the most part. I think The Ringer has some good people, like Ben Lindbergh, Justin Charity, good writers who are happy to put games right up there with all the other stuff that they're writing about.
Sure.
But The Ringer is also like a populist, has like a populist approach to pop culture, right? It wants to be there with you, like in the bleachers at the game, or like in the theater with you, and then like find interesting things to think about that like maybe you can't quite put your finger on, and you'd be like, yeah, that's the thing I was looking for talk about with my friends with this thing. But a lot of the other places, don't, like, and this is something you can like rail against, or it's something that you can work with. And I choose to work with it, right? Where it's just sort of like, fuck you, like, I don't need you to like or care about the things that I do. I am going to figure out how to make something beautiful out of that you have to notice, and that's kind of, the part of the work to me, where again, it's not necessarily, did I change anything? Like, I would not set my sights that high. It would be like, I made you look,
Yeah, totally.
I grabbed you by the collar for a second and you stopped and heard what I had to say,
That resonates with me so much in terms of, I think maybe the most important and impactful piece of games writing I read this year on, from Aftermath. Autumn Wright wrote about the BDS movement against Microsoft. It's important to know. It's important to know. It's important to see it. Yeah. And I think that's something that Peter and I have kind of repeated a lot this year. Just, it's important to know. It's important to see it and to face it and to think about it. And that's, great.
Can I ask you one more question about your relationship with this game? So, because this is a remaster or a remake, right?
It's a little fuzzy.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's another version of a game that's
Right.
a little bit older. So did you play that original? And then if you did, like, you playing it now, did your understanding of it change at all? Just being an older person who's experienced something and then come back to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I never played the, what was it, 1997 original, I think, which came out on PlayStation. I was aware of it. I played the War of the Lions remake, which came out on PSP. And then that is basically the version that has traveled for a little while. I think there was like an iOS port,
Sure.
and a few other stuff. But the thing about the War of the Lions thing is they got retranslated, added a bunch of cool content, classes, things of that nature, and is generally just kind of like, a really good version of the game. This one, I think and this is not wholly me, a lot of people are appreciating about this game because like people tend to sort of like, um, if they want to nitpick, and they will acknowledge it's a nitpick, right? It's not necessarily, I'm not being disparaging at all. If people want to nitpick, they'll be like, oh, the prose is a little purple,
Sure.
because like they're doing this very, so they are reaching for like Shakespeare and when you're reading that, uh, maybe it doesn't land for you. The new version adds voice acting and it revisits that script and fleshes it out.
Oh.
And so it feels like performance. It feels like theater. And like, I think for anybody who was maybe missing what the game was doing, just needed like that little extra push to get there. I think this new version of the game, for that reason alone, basically, has that little push. Um, the voice acting in that game is really good. They all do the silly like English affectation, right? But it's very good for sort of like punching you in to the mode that we're working in.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think it's such a it's so true in school that when you read a Shakespeare play in like high school or whatever, that's such a, it wasn't maybe meant to be digested that way. And then when you go and see it and you hear it performed, or that's why like in class they'll have people read it aloud. It's like it takes on a new, no worries, it takes on a new kind of meaning. And a term you used there that I'm not 100% sure if our audience would be entirely familiar with is this concept of purple prose, which I would say is just kind of like show.
I was nodding along, pretending. I was like, purple prose for sure.
It's just show-offy language. Yeah. So just wanted to make that clear to everybody. But to have that kind of Shakespearean language and be like, okay, maybe this is a lot of text boxes in the original, but now to maybe give in to a little bit of the melodrama, that heightened sense of reality, that goes, I could see how that could go a really long way. Yeah, definitely. It's cool. All right, Peter, do you think we're ready for our the second part of our guest appearance here?
This is why I'm here. This is when we're talking to these people, I'm like, yeah, I want to hear about your game for sure. But I want to hear more of the industry analysis, but maybe is the word, or the discourse now. I don't know what I would call it, but yes, I'm dying.
Yeah, so of course we, do this show that is concerned with how we talk about games. And our second question for our guests was just to identify for them a high pressure ask, which was their critical error of the year. Just something to get off their chest about maybe how we could better talk about games, something that maybe as we're looking forward to 2026, it would be cool if the industry on a larger scale embraced. So what were you thinking about for this?
I'm going to do a little bit of a swerve.
Because
like I think if you know my work, sometimes I come across as a little punchy.
Okay.
But like I do want to, take the opportunity you folks are giving me to articulate something I believe in deeply.
Cool.
And something that I feel is continually lacking in any field of like criticism and journalism. And it's to remember that the work you do is beautiful. That it is like I think intellectually we all know that it is rare and privileged to have the platform and any form of audience at all. But the work will also grind you down And the only way to survive that sometimes is to dull that beauty, right? To forget um, how meaningful it is, right? I uh, there's a thing that I do, like I don't do it all the time because I'll go crazy, but like every once in a while I'll just ask, I'll come at a piece and I'll be like, this was written just because, you know.
Mm, yeah.
And it's like they're like the focus is on games, so I'll look at games in particular, but it's just sort of like they're life is too short, and our time in this game, in the time that we have to give games, the time that we have to write and read about games is finite. It's even more finite than most things because, this is such a time-consuming medium. This is such a meat grinder of an industry, both in the, on the side of like making games and on the side of writing about them. Uh, that like the time that realistically you have to be in this space is short, you know? And you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the people that read you
Mm,
to just like really fucking make it count, you know?
mm,
Like I'm not saying that you can't, have fun or do dumb jokes. I've done both, I still do both. I'm funny, damn it,
mm.
like
I love you. You posted this on Blue Sky where you were like, I like to throw jokes, like at least like one joke into something I'm writing, just to like make people know like I'm not being that serious about it. And I love that
yeah,
because it is serious, but it is also like it helps the reader like I think just like figure out the tone of like, oh no, we're like chatting, you know?
yeah,
Sometimes the
yeah.
stakes aren't so high
Yeah.
as we kind of make them out to be. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, and if there's any self-conscious on that, it's like it's that like I know that conviction is like unusual, you
Mm.
know,
Mm, mm. Wow.
um,
Yeah.
and it comes across as like harsh or judgmental, and so like part of that is like an act of care for the reader, where
Mm,
it's just sort of like, I do not think I'm any better than anybody.
Yeah.
I just believe this thing and it bothers me,
yeah.
Yeah.
and I don't know. I think again, I don't think it is realistic to expect people to be uncompromising all the time. You
Yeah.
know, I think as we age and as we move through this like terrible, like uh, socioeconomic situation, you are going to accrete compromises. It's
Mm,
just as your you know uh, responsibilities accrue, as you sort of like age and move through the world, you
mm,
have to make these bargains, right? And you have to decide for yourself what things will you not budge on, right? You
Yeah.
compromise where you can, um, and what do you call it? Be loud about everything else, you know, because like not only that, uh, maybe further down the line, you have to make a compromise you didn't when you were younger, and that's
Yeah.
that's life, you know what I mean?
right.
So it's like while you have the room to talk, while you have the legs under you,
Mm, okay.
fucking do it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like it comes back to like what we owe each other, I
Mm,
think. Because it's very easy to succumb to ego and think that you're right and other people are wrong, and like you're doing it wrong if that's what you're coming at. Um, it's sort of like just being cognizant again of the limited time and space that you have, and you don't know how how it's going to shake out from you, right? Like I quit my job at Polygon 2 years ago. I didn't know that I would only have another year there if I had
Yep.
stayed,
right.
you
Right.
know.
Wow.
And,
Mm,
like um, everybody knows it's coming for all of us.
mm,
And so like I think uh, too much of the message that I see people leaving behind is that like it sucks for everybody, get paid, do what you
right.
gotta. And sure, I don't I can't speak to every circumstance, right? Like I can't say that's like bad advice or anything like that. But I can say that while you do have the space, you gotta bring it all,
Yeah.
because the people coming behind you need that.
Yeah.
You've got to leave the ladder behind them at the very, if you're not going to leave like a career ladder behind them to help, like boost them up, at the
Mm.
very least you can just sort of like give them the space, make the room, take the heat, so that the next person behind you has more room to work with and can maybe push things further than you did,
Yeah.
and that's like part of the thing too, where it's just sort of like, I am in a space right now where just sort of, I think about quitting games writing in particular, like all the time. But at the same time, I feel that I'm in a space where like I can probably piss some people off that other people can't, you know?
Yeah.
Like they're, like I don't have, uh, you know, what do you call it? Like I know for a fact that like, if I were a woman saying some of the things that I said, people would be even worse to me,
Mm.
like, and they're not great, but like,
Yeah.
um, but what do you call it? It's, and then there's also, people who are just sort of like trying to put food on the table, trying to get the job. And, like they can't necessarily rock the boat in any way, or other people depend on them to get that work, right? Like I never fault, I don't want to say that. Let me put it a different way.
Yeah.
There are people who there are all different. There are a number of ways in which we support one another, and if you have the room to sort of like support your peers to further the work this way, then you should do it. I think I think it all should be working towards like us connecting with each other, us seeing each other more, us sort of like being like, yeah, um, we are all interested in this medium, but we're all interested in it in a very human way, like
Yeah.
I only care about games in the sense that for as long as they lead me to think about people,
Mm.
and each other, because like the second they stop doing that, I'll walk away, like I think we got to do it for something. This is a really like messy articulation of a thing, but like,
That's the critical error special. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what,
and I think what I want to make clear to our audience too is that, first off, thank you for sharing that, and I think that was what you're presenting to us is something that I think is really challenging. And
Yeah.
I want the listener to, maybe, if they're not already in my shoes, kind of like digesting everything that you're saying, what I'm finding is this inherently almost conflicting and combative position of, I need to be gracious to the real people around me. And it is
mhm,
not about being everybody kind of assuming the same role and being correct in whatever way I think is correct. But at the same time, I need to run at what I think is correct
mhm,
and make it, and like you said at the top, make it count.
yeah,
And that is that it's hard to be that person sometimes. And
yeah.
yeah.
It's because ultimately it's just sort of like you gotta respect, the reader, and then you
Yeah.
also gotta respect your peers,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta trust them enough to
Mm.
like, um, like I'm not above like provocation. I think provocation is useful,
Yeah. Right. Right.
but like it's an act to me. The way you ground that and not be an asshole,
Mm,
is that you do it in trust. You trust that the
mm,
reader is smart enough to grasp you, even though you know that there are some people who are going to take it in bad faith. And you trust in your peers to be like, if they think you're on some bullshit, to
yeah.
articulate why,
Yeah.
in a
Mm.
way that furthers the conversation. Um, or if like your work is like in some way like harmful or deleterious, right?
Mm,
To tell you, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like I think, um, that's how you sort of like again, like you have to constantly do these checks on yourself,
Yeah.
to sort of like, you know, be not assume, not presume yourself to not to be above arrogance,
Mm-hmm.
or just sort of like being a jerk or rude or inconsiderate. Just sort of like sit with the fact that you can do all these things, whether you intend to or not. That like you can just be fucking lousy. Um, and you know, if you write aware of that, you are less likely to sort of like veer into that space. And then also, you can be gracious if somebody's like, "Oh, you veered in that direction," you know?
Yeah. I think one of the things that Jake and I talk about sometimes, mostly off the podcast, but then sometimes we try to like articulate it usually at the start of an episode when we are like looking at a specific work that someone has written, is sort of like what you're saying about this idea of just like empathy, right? Of course, of like this person wrote this thing. Obviously, we're not talking about them as a person. We're just talking about the thing that they made. But the thing that I think that maybe we should hit on sometimes more between Jake and I is this idea of like sometimes someone's just at work. Do you know what I mean? Like when I worked at Old Navy in high school and college, if someone were from like Old Navy corporate was like, let's take a look at what Peter does on a day to day, it would be like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Sometimes you're just at work. And I even think about like when I like have written, right? Like I worked at The Gamer for about a year, and about 3 or 4 months of that, I was just in the content mill writing portion of it. And I think about like, if someone took a look at what I had written every single day with the same microscope, with the same whatever that sometimes we do, like, is that going to be a really good reflection of who I am as a writer? And the answer is like, no, sometimes I was just at work, you know, but I do like what you said though, but this idea of like finding beauty in what you're doing and joy in what you're doing in this stuff too, because even in an environment that was like that was like so oppressive and just awful about like content now, I tried every day. I had to write 5 pieces every day. And it was like, I make one of them something I'm proud of and good. And you know, the rest can be me at work and me doing whatever. But like one thing I want to write that is beautiful and good, and that I would say, yeah, we can take a look at this, you know? And I think that's important, especially in an industry like games media that is so like exploitive, and I think so many of these websites, you know, an increasing number of them exist to grind people up and just spit them out, and are like totally aware that they're doing that and fine with doing that. So I really appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah, me too, Peter. And I think something that I am reflecting on a lot is just that, you know, we end every episode of our podcast with one of us has prepared a written piece. And I think we've done a good job of making that a practice of, you know, I think as writers, we maybe all understand that there is like nothing more painful than writing, but then that ecstasy of discovery when you figure out what it is that you were trying to say, or you learn something about an idea that you had just kind of begun to scratch the surface of, is so like, I don't know. And everything I'm proud of, there's that moment where I feel like I hit on the idea and I run upstairs to tell my wife in her office, like, Sarah, I think I got something. And yeah, and like that is I feel like I'm constantly chasing that feeling, and to give ourselves the opportunity to have that feeling, to discover something every week is something that I'm proud of. Yeah, I think that's a good practice.
And I think too, in terms of like the idea of like giving people like grace and whatever for your peers and everything like that, I think it's so important to like reflect and remember it too. Like anything good that I've ever made has waffled and rubber banded like back and forth from being some of the worst things I've ever made. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think everyone has that moment where you are like, oh, it's terrible. Oh, the thing I've been working on so hard it's actually terrible. And sometimes it has to get out the door, and it's like that. You're like, well, I tried. But then other times you have the opportunity where it's like, no, it's terrible. But here's how I'm going to change it and make it good and all that stuff. And I think it's important to remember, as you're saying, grace to your peers and grace to the people around you and to your audience and readers and everything like that, about like, no, like sometimes things don't come together, or they do come together, but at the end of the day, you're doing it and you're trying, you know, that's good.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I struggle with, is that I also think that it's a responsibility, you know, and if, you know, sometimes I feel that, you know, we can be irresponsible with the work, you know, and that grace can sort of like be leveraged as to like a shield, you know, where it's and for me, I think where I draw the line is just sort of like, is this like a beef that I have with things, something I believe, or is this something that I feel is what do you call it? Um, I don't know, detrimental to the reader, you know? Um, where it's just sort of like, if I can remove myself from the equation, and try and figure out, if and articulate a specific reason why I think this is, detrimental to like the public's understanding, like the readership's understanding, then I'll fire away, you know.
Okay.
But if it's just like me, then that's just like fucking like, why am I gonna fucking, you know?
Yeah. Right.
You know, and like maybe that's off base. I don't know. I'm just like I'm just a guy. You know,
Yeah.
there's just times where it's just sort of like I think things are wrong, and not in the sense that are like incorrect, but like wrong in the sense that like they are an improper use of the platform that we have. You know, and I think we have to hold each other accountable to be better, but also just really give people something beautiful, something that enriches their experience of the world. You know.
Yeah. Joshua Rivera.
Thank you so much. Oh
Thank
my
you
God.
so much.
Thank you for having me. I've been what do you call it? Enjoying your less than a year of doing this, and y'all have come out swinging. And I think you, for as long as you want to do this, I think you all are making this a more interesting space, a better space. And I hope that for as long as you got it into you, for as long as you got it in you, because I don't wish anybody to like keep going at this forever, but like for as long as you got it in you, I hope you keep doing it. I hope that you guys feel the work is rewarding, because I think it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely do
much.
too. And before you go, I just want to ask, 2026 on the horizon, any teases, anything to look forward to? We have cultivated a kind of small group on our podcast of just fans of you. And I think they might like to know if there's anything in terms of your work that's coming up.
Oh, I don't know. There may be.
Okay.
There is like a big long-term thing I've been working on all year that may see the light of day tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow.
Awesome.
Next year.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Tomorrow in like the broader sense, right?
Yeah.
But generally, yeah, I don't really know. I'm not a big planner.
Yeah, great.
Get it.
Yeah.
I have a few things in the works, and I just think that we're in for another tumultuous year. I think we're in for another year full of things to think about and consider, and also laugh about, take joy in, and be pissed about, but I will be here with you all, figuring that shit out,
Awesome.
So looking forward to seeing you all in the new year doing it with me.
To the new year. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Joshua.
Thank you.
Thank you to Joshua Rivera, to Autumn Wright, to Barrett Courtney for taking the time to chat with us. Thank you to the members of the Critical Error Nation who shared their writing with us. Thank you to you for listening. And Jake, truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing this with me this year. I know like it's fun to like, sometimes it feels like silly to like look back and whatever, but like Critical Error has been a huge highlight for me personally to just like do week to week. And it's been such a fun, like creative endeavor. And it's like, thank you so much, man, for like even wanting to do this with me.
I cannot express the positive influence that doing this every single week has had on my life.
Yes.
Real
Yes, me
material, like more than I think anything I worked on this year. This was the thing that just like most kept me afloat, kept me up. And I like obviously thank you to you for being the just best collaborator that I could ever imagine. I've said it to you a few times, but it's true. Like for years being on YouTube, people would tell me like, you should have a podcast, you should have a podcast. And people had kind of pitched that to me and floated it to me. And I was like, no. And I was like waiting for the prettiest girl in school to ask me to prom.
Oh my gosh.
And it happened. And I just like couldn't be happier. I'm so excited for, in a real way, kind of like the future of Critical Error. And I just want to give another shout out to the people that are supporting us on Patreon. We should probably say that next week, January 1st, there won't be an episode of the podcast, but there will be an episode of the bonus podcast.
It's so
for
true.
Our patrons, because we can't let them down.
No. And it's the least we can do for the incredible support that we've seen from them. We haven't recorded that one yet. We're going to do it in a little bit here. I'm excited because I think it'll be kind of fun.
I'm excited for Critical Error as a show to keep growing, because even in our short time doing it already, you and I have learned things about how to do the show that we didn't know upon starting it. I think it's been like a learning process, and I think we're still in that.
Yeah.
And I think we spent the first few months here really figuring out what Critical Error was, and I think we get that to a certain degree now. And I want to take a lot of swings next year. I want to really like push the envelope and try things out and continue to do things that I think are irregular in the larger gaming space. I want to be, here's a thing that other people maybe don't do. Here's our like take on it, you know?
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this as an idea and then we can end the show.
Okay.
I mentioned it once in passing, but I really think is 2026 the year? It'll take a lot of coordination, a lot of planning, where we do a full episode that is
No. In a haunted house.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome! I mean, for sure, yeah, that good.
Is that what you were gonna say when we play a game in a haunted house? Or
No, that's something else. I'm down for that though.
Right.
No, a full episode that is entirely musical theater. So like we are singing and performing the entire thing for one full hour. It would take so much coordination, so much work. No one would watch it. It would be our least viewed episode, I'm sure, because that's how it works when you work on something.
Podcast is also a musical.
Yes. Can you imagine just one episode and we just never address it? It's like
we would have to pick the right topic. Yeah. It would have to give us a lot of room.
Yeah.
I think we could do it though.
I think we could. I think it would be really good. Would be a lot of fun. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Nothing would motivate me to do that more than being supported at patreon.com/criticalerror.
You know what it is? It's a bonus tier. It's like if we hit blank number of patrons or whatever, it's like then we will do the musical episode. We actually will. Thank you for the support in 2025. We will see you in 2026. Critical Error Nation forever. Patreon.com/critical error. We'll see you in the new year.
Happy New Year!
Mwah! That's a kiss on your forehead for you. Bye.